Hey, this is WhyBeAre with BeamNG.drive, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Ibishu Dove, which is a mod based on the Ibishu Pigeon. So we're going to start off with the Wagon 1.3 LX because that's a good middle ground version of the vehicle. The main thing this mod does is it makes the Ibishu Pigeon a four-wheeled vehicle, hence the name Ibishu Dove. In addition to that, you also get the wagon body style as well as some other extras which we'll be going over at a later time. But right now, we're going to see how well the wagon holds up to some crashes. So we'll start off with a half overlap crash at about 60 miles per hour right there. And somehow one of the hubcaps flew straight through my roof. That was kind of funny. And then we'll speed things up and take a look at the damage. So we can still steer the front suspension. Can we drive it all though? Nope, the drive shaft is broken, so we cannot accelerate. Which means it's time to get a new Ibishu Dove, and with this one, we're going to do some side impact crash testing. So that means we're just going to go up to a wall and then slide into it like that, and see what the outcome looks like. So overall damage-wise, seems okay, and it should drive. I see no reason why it wouldn't. And yes, it will, so we'll go ahead and do another impact just like that one. I see a beautiful brick wall to slam into. Whoa! I did not see that coming. We got popped up from the little pieces of wood just sitting there. Either way, the Ibishu Dove can still drive even with that deflated tire, so we'll go for another round. Got to slide to the right. Good. Doors are starting to fall off, but the car can keep driving. I love the side impacts because they don't usually kill vehicles too fast, but you get a ton of cool looking damage. So here we go again. Uh-oh, I think we're getting so damaged up, the amount of damage we receive is going to be kind of minimal in comparison to what the vehicle looks like. I like how beat up the front looks. Like, I would not have expected that. I guess that's when we got bopped into the air. It just ended up hitting it kind of in the corner of the A-pillar. Come on, more damage! Ooh, that one got me right in the rear. It pulled at the last pillar a little bit. It looks a little stretched out. But drivability-wise, I can still drive this. It looks like it's super bent, but it'll still drive. I love that. Trying to go over to this little building, and then boom again. That one was kind of a front impact. It doesn't stop it though. What's it look like from the inside? Yeah, you can't see nothing on the inside. One of the cool things about this mod though is all the different little dash interiors you can get, which we'll be taking a look at later. First, we gotta see how long this thing will live, and it's starting to become a little bit finicky to drive, I'm noticing, so I don't know how much longer this will last. I see a good straightaway right here though. We're gonna go for it. Try to keep it straight, try to keep it straight. Ooh! That was not the way that was supposed to go, but it still will drive. It's still gonna go. This thing looks nothing like what it started. It is a dedicated vehicle after that first one failed in one impact. It's like, I'm gonna be impressive, but I'm kind of bored of this, so we're just gonna dump it into the water. There we go. One final look at it before we respawn it. Did a very good job of holding up, and you saw it in the first crash. It does actually stop driving. It's just it was crashing in ways that made it keep living. Now let me try to give you guys a quick overview of all the different options we have for the Ibishu Dove. We have almost every vehicle available in either pickup or wagon form, and then we also have an engine size and a trim letter. So the trim letters, we have L, LX, GLX, and GTZ. So I'm gonna actually spawn up one of each. So we already have an LX, so we're just gonna spawn up a L, and then we're going to spawn up a GLX. And then to round things off, we're going to be spawning up a GTZ version of the vehicle. And all of these ones are the wagons just for consistency's sake. We'll start off by looking at the L version of the vehicle, which is basically the base model version of the vehicle. And you can tell this one is super basic because it's missing some buttons. Like over here, you have this indentation here where there's just nothing. And then on the dash, you have some things that look like they could be gauges, but they're just blanks. That's what happens when you buy a base model version of a vehicle. But if we move on to the LX, which is the next stage up, you get an actual radio. And in addition to that, you have a little clock on the dash as well. After the LX, we have the GLX, and on the GLX, we have even more gauges. So we have a fuel gauge right here. Yes, the first two didn't even have a fuel gauge. Then we also have a temperature gauge, and the clock has been moved down here next to the radio. And on this one, we get a nicer looking steering wheel, which is just an extra bonus. And then going on to the GTZ, everything is the same except for the additional gauges up here. We get a fuel pressure gauge and a battery gauge. And then they all have differences on the interior as well. So on the base model, you don't have this little strip down here or the rest for your arm. It literally doesn't have that. I mean, that sounds absurd, right? But look, it's not there. I went to the wrong one at first, but see, no armrest. Everything above that gets an armrest. And then everything above the LX gets the little strip on the bottom of the door. And then, of course, every vehicle also has text on the rear to tell you exactly what you're driving. So if you're driving this one, you got the Dove wagon by Ibishu with the 1.6 GTZ engine and four-wheel drive full time. By the way, this is the fastest wagon that you can get for the Ibishu Dove, and to demonstrate how fast it is, boom, we're going up almost 60 miles per hour right there and smacking it into the walls just like we were doing before, but I'm not going to do a bunch of side impacts. We're going to do one side impact and then one front impact. So even though this thing is damaged, we can still get up to 40 and still drive it, actually. I was thinking that might kill it, but no, we can still drive it. So into another wall in the rear. Fuel tank ruptured. That's okay. We keep going to the next wall. Like, I'm just kind of bouncing between the walls really gently, but it's giving you some cool looking crashes, so I figure why not? Uh-oh. My Dove is on fire. There's a little bit of fire in my Dove. It'll be fine. It's gonna leave a little bit of a fire trail behind us. That way everybody knows where I've been. And the camera right there was a little bit awkward because the car was pulling to the left and I didn't even notice it. Oh, by the way, I have like no control of this thing. It's driving super awkwardly. Back it up, back it up. Oh, I can't get no traction no more. Maybe if I'm going forward, I get traction. Hold on. Traction? Traction. The search for traction. I can get a little bit of traction and just bash into everything else. Quick, I know what to do for fire. We dump it in the water. Now what, fire? You can't burn my vehicle any longer. I got so distracted with the crashing, I really didn't do that great of a job showing you guys how fast this thing is. So now let's just do a little bit of more serious driving so you can see just how fast it is. So just getting up to speed. We're already hitting 50 miles per hour right here, but we do need to slow down because we got some tight corners. One thing that's fun to do with this thing is just kind of flinging it around the corners like that because it is four-wheel drive plus a short wheelbase. So you can really just fling like that and it'll pull through a lot of the time, which is fun to do. So we can take this jump right here at way too fast miles per hour. And actually, we still have a drivable vehicle. I was thinking that I was going to totally take it out. Acceleration is a little bit worse than normal, but still it's getting up to about 50 miles per hour right here before we crash into the container and fully kill the vehicle. Now, in all these crashes so far, I've really seen nothing to speak of that looks bad. The main thing you really need to focus on is the rear because most of the vehicle I would expect is very similar to the Pigeon where all the wagon stuff was made for it. And I don't know what I did right here, but look. The vehicle disappears. And while I'm on the topic of the 1.6 liter version being the fastest version, let's go ahead and just take a look at all the different engine options we have. First, we have the 600 liter one, which is just a 30 horsepower engine. Then we have the 1 liter one, which is a 50 horsepower engine. Then we have the 1.3, which is a 68 horsepower engine. Then we have the 1.6 in the LX and the GLX, which is 90 horsepower. But when you get the GTZ, you get a better version of the 1.6 liter engine that makes 122 horsepower. Now I'm a little bit bored of this map, so we're going to go ahead and just swap out for a different one. How about we head over to Small Island, USA, because we got a small vehicle which should work great on a small island. So far, we've exclusively used the wagon version of the Dove. Now we can go ahead and try out the pickup version, and I'll show you a couple of other extras the GLX version gets over the other ones. So when you get the GLX and better, you can get a strip on the side of the vehicle right there. Just gives it a little bit more to look at. And then you get headrest because this one's fast enough to push your neck back and you need something to support your weak neck and head. Or just because you get a little bit extra luxury because you're paying extra money and you can actually rest your head while just cruising along. Because really, the vehicle isn't that fast still. Anyways, this one is even more like a normal Pigeon than one we've seen before because the whole rear end is basically stock Pigeon as far as I can see. Except for that little piece of stripping on the side, which really doesn't make that big of a difference. Kind of annoying that I totally fell off the road like that, but amazingly, we have an undamaged car. It's kind of rare. Just driving along the beach like this, you get to see something the normal Pigeon would really struggle on when you only got 3 wheels. It's a little bit rough driving through this area with the 4 wheels and 4-wheel drive. It is flying through this area. A little bit too fast for my own good, I would say. So let's go ahead and try to actually take this thing back to the main road. And going over a lot of bumpy terrain right there, it actually made it. I thought it was going to tip over for sure right there. But somehow, it was just a breeze that pushed it right back up and it It's gonna keep on going with virtually no damage aside from maybe some damage when it was bouncing around on the rocks. But overall, much easier to drive than the normal Pigeon, and it's very stable in terms of rolling. Like right there, pretty much anything would have rolled in that situation. For some reason though, this thing's really good at getting itself upright. Maybe the normal Pigeon has a really low center of gravity, so this one also has a low center of gravity, and since it has 4 wheels, it just makes it more likely to land upright. And right now it's pulling a little bit to the right, which is why I accidentally went through the water. I'm gonna just keep driving this thing like through the terrain. I don't want to drive it on any roads because I'm so impressed with how well it's handling all of this. Like, this is stuff you never, ever do in a normal Pigeon, which is, to me, the best part about the vehicle, is doing things you can't do in the normal Pigeon, but can only be done in the Dove. I'm afraid though, whoops, upright, come on, somehow get upright. Amazing how it does that. Like, watch this, come on, it's gonna upright itself, right? Okay, maybe not that time, and I think this thing's beat up enough where I'm not gonna try to really pull it over. Instead, I'll just reset it, because it's not gonna flip itself here, is it? Yeah, not happening. So let's just go ahead and move on to the next one I wanted to drive, which is the pickup 1.3 LX box truck loaded. And loaded means there is some cargo in the rear. Now with the normal Pigeon, you would have no way to see the cargo but to shove your face through the vehicle. With the Dove, you have the ability to open up the tailgate and see what's inside. It's one of those things where you don't notice that the Pigeon doesn't do that until you play with the Dove, and you're like, oh yeah, but if you spawn up a Pigeon right here, you see there's no buttons up here saying, hey, this is how you open that up, and if you hit the same button that's used on the Dove, nothing happens. And same goes for the normal non-box version. You can lower the tailgate on a regular Dove, but not a Pigeon. So let's go ahead and try to spin this thing around so we're not driving the same road twice, and drive it around a bit. Now, one thing that actually surprised me about this thing is how fast it is. You would think with a 1.3 liter engine and an extra 450 kilograms in the rear, it would be pretty slow. But it's not. Like, it can get up to 30 miles per hour a lot faster than I would have expected. It's not a fast vehicle. If you go to like a map where it's a long highway like Utah, USA, it will feel slow. But when you have tight corners like this, it feels totally fine. Like, I don't feel like I need a car much faster than this driving through here, because if you drive faster than the speeds I'm going right here, you'll start bouncing too much, or you'll just overshoot the corners and stuff. Now with the extra weight though, it is less stable and it's easier to tip. It's not as easy to tip as a normal Pigeon, but it's getting close, because if I wanted to, I'm pretty sure I could tip this thing over pretty easily. Yep, there we go, that was easy. Now the boxes are super lopsided too, so that's gonna make it even harder to keep this thing upright. See, with them just dragging me on that side. Oh, well, that was unexpected. Like, the vehicle, it looks unharmed, but somehow the boxes flew out. So I'm just gonna say goodbye to this version and go on to the next one I wanted to drive, which is kind of the same thing, but a little bit different. It is the pickup 1.6 LX loaded. So this one has a slightly bigger engine, but instead of having the box, it just has the normal pickup bed. And again, as I was mentioning earlier, you can open up the bed of the pickup, or the tailgate of the pickup, and then close it, unlike the Pigeon. And then we'll just drive along the exact same road we were driving before, because, well, we've driven both directions from the spawn point, so I don't have many places I can go from that location. And I think it might be fun to just crash this thing into a tree with all that extra weight in the rear. So we're going to be going, looks like about 60 miles per hour as we fly into this tree. We're going to use 16 times slow-mo here so you can really, oh, watch those boxes just destroy the driver. It looked like they got shot out of the rear to just go up there. That was crazy. But pretty much what I expected, just not at that much speed. That was insane. And yeah, that thing got totally destroyed. I want to do a little bit more driving, but not from here. I've already driven it in both directions, one of them multiple times, so we're going to hop over to a different map. How about Jungle Rock Island? And we'll start at the peninsula. Up until this point, I've just been using the fast versions of the vehicles because I'm WhyBeAre. That's what I do. But there are slower versions like the Dove Wagon 600L JDM, which is a 548cc engine that makes only 30 horsepower. And it's actually faster than you would expect because this thing is so lightweight. I'm not saying it's fast. It's not even close to being fast. But if you think of a car with only 30 horsepower, you don't expect it to move much at all. But this thing, you can get about 40 miles per hour going through here, even on the uphills, which is more than I would have expected. Now this one, I believe, it only has a 3-speed transmission. The faster engine you get, the better transmission you get, and it gives you more gears, and it also changes the length of the gears, and it just makes it feel right when you're driving it. You don't feel like the engine doesn't match up with the gearbox or anything like that. One of those things that's a little bit harder to demonstrate because it's so feel-based, but trust me, it feels good driving any version of the vehicle with any engine. It feels right. Now, I want to crash this thing, but any crash here would suck because there are all the trees and bushes that absorb the impact, so I'm waiting for the jump. And I think the jump is coming, so I'm going to open up my wing and prepare to fly. There's the jump, and that's actually pretty good air. And I just totally popped open my rear. I wonder what happens if I try to close it. Nothing. So it's actually just somehow standing there on top of it. Now, you probably have noticed by now that aside from the tailgate button in the top, there's also raise and lower front torsion bar buttons. Those do not work on every vehicle. It's listed for every Dove, but it only works with the ones that have the 4-wheel drive suspension. So let's just go ahead and grab one that has that so I can show you what it looks like when you raise and lower it. Part of the reason I've been neglecting to show you that is because I haven't had one with 4-wheel drive, well, ever since I started doing the open and closed tailgate, as far as I can remember. So now, if we look very closely at the front right here, you can see it go up and down. So first we raise it, then we lower it. And of course, it looks more dramatic when you're fully lowered and fully raised and you go from one to the other. And it's as little or as much raise as you want. It's not like an on and off button. It's like a dial. So you could lower it just a tiny bit or a little bit more or a little bit more or just go all the way. It's all up to you. I don't really have much use for that, honestly, aside from lowering it all the way for a little bit better handling on this map because there are very few off-roading areas here and I don't think there are any near us. Yeah. I mean, we could just, jump off of it and like, raise it to make it land better, which kind of worked. I mean, it really is just, it's just bouncing gently through the trees, barely getting damaged at all, which is boring to watch. Look at that. Jumping off a cliff and barely any damage at all to the vehicle. And then you got the door right there just waving at us like, hello, did I do a good job, WhyBeAre? And I say, Dove, I am proud of you. I'm just annoyed at the trees making you not get hurt at all. And that about shows off everything I wanted to show off with this mod. To end this in a little bit different way than I normally would do, though, let's do this. We're going to go to the time of day. We're going to make it nighttime. And then we're going to go to the interior version of the camera, turn on the lights, and just drive around like this for a little bit because this is the kind of video I never do because it's really hard to see things once it's on YouTube. But hey, you can throw it in there at the end of the video just for the heck of it every now and then, right? Plus, this is the best way to really see how everything lights up here because you got a ton of lights to be looking at. Like, I'm looking at the lights right there, almost driving off the side of the road. I don't know if you could tell that, but yeah, gotta be careful there. And I'm gonna keep my view a little bit lower just so anybody who's looking at the lights could keep looking at them because they're mesmerizing with all the lights everywhere on this version. It's cool. And I should mention, most of the things in the interior that you would look to for movement do move. Like, you see the gauges and all that are functional, and you got like the steering wheel and pedals, etc. And up, that's off the edge. And like I said, that's everything I wanted to do with the mods, so that'll be it. Till next time, this is WhyBeAre. I'll see ya.